your alarm goes off. It is Monday morning. You get out of bed, commute, work for 8 hours, go to sleep, and do it again.
The endless loop.
Right. You get your paycheck, pay your rent, and suddenly your bank account is empty again. You have to start over.
Yeah, zeroed out.
Exactly. You are pushing a boulder up a mountain and it just rolled back to the bottom. Welcome to the Sisyphus grind.
It is a pretty bleak way to wake up, honestly.
Oh, definitely. Welcome to the debate. Today, we're looking at why that Monday morning dread isn't just you needing more coffee. We are examining how sociologists and modern philosophers are using the ancient Greek myth of King Sisyphus.
Right, the guy cursed by the gods to push a massive boulder up a steep hill, literally for eternity.
Yeah, that's the one. They're using it as this ultimate chilling blueprint for the modern 9-to-5. Our source material draws a direct parallel between this mythological punishment and, well, the daily reality of the working class.
And it's an incredibly fitting metaphor. We both agree the metaphor is eerily accurate.
We do. But our disagreement centers on where the real horror of this trap actually lies. I'll state my side clearly. From my perspective, the absolute exhaustion of this modern work loop comes from a rigged economic structure. It's mathematical.
Okay, the material angle?
Exactly. We're dealing with a system that is deliberately designed to financially reset our progress. The torture is material, systemic, and highly calculated.
And I take a distinctly different view on the material. I argue that the true punishment we are examining isn't the physical or economic exhaustion of the labor itself. The true horror, just as it was in the original myth, is the psychological torture.
The mental weight of it.
Right. It's the terrifying awareness that the hustle culture we actively, enthusiastically participate in is a completely pointless loop. So for me, the trap is existential, not merely economic.
Well, let's get right into the mechanics of this, because I think it's vital we look at exactly how this boulder rolls back down the hill. We're often sold this narrative, the American dream or the corporate ladder.
Push hard enough and you'll reach the top.
Exactly. Get the promotion, secure the mortgage, find peace. But the structural reality of hypercapitalism is that the mountain is designed to grow taller while you climb. It's not just incidentally difficult, it's an active mechanism of wealth extraction.
I mean, I hear you, but...
Let me just finish the math on this because it's wild. Your paycheck comes in, but asset inflation, housing costs, all the basic necessities are mathematically calibrated to drain it. You get a 3% annual raise, but your rent goes up 8%, right?
Yeah, the math is brutal.
Right, and groceries jump 12%. That delta, that negative space between your wage and the cost of living, that is gravity pulling the boulder back to the bottom of the hill. It guarantees that at the end of the month, your surplus is zero, and you just have no choice but to show up on Monday.
See, I see the math you're pointing to, but you're treating the human being in this equation like a simple input-output machine. To understand my position, we really have to look at the genius of the original myth.
Okay, how so?
Well, if the Greek gods just wanted Sisyphus to suffer physically, they could have, chained him to a wall and let vultures pick at him.
Like Prometheus.
Exactly, like Prometheus. But they didn't. They gave him a task. And the true cruelty of that task is that the boulder only rolls back down after he exerts maximum effort to reach the top. It's the dashed hope that breaks him.
The emotional devastation.
Right. And I argue that modern hustle culture is the exact same psychological trap. Hustle culture tricks us into thinking the boulder won't roll down this time. We convince ourselves that if we just wake up at 5 a.m., if we optimize our routine with cold plunges and productivity apps, we can outsmart gravity.
I mean, cold plunges aren't going to pay the rent.
No, they aren't. The physical reality of a depleted bank account hurts, sure, but the horror is in our minds. It's the realization of the absolute pointlessness of our own optimization.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. You are framing hustle culture as this abstract internal state of mind, almost like a personal failing or a collective delusion.
I wouldn't call it a failing, but it is a delusion.
It isn't that delusion manufactured by the steep economic mountain itself. The boulder rolls back down because rent is due, not just because of an existential mindset. Healthcare premiums rise. You don't wake up at 5 a.m. because of a psychological quirk.
You do it to survive.
Yes, you do it because if you don't keep up with the impossible productivity demands of your employer, you lose your livelihood. The threat of homelessness and starvation is the whip.
I come at it from a different way, though. Yes, the rent is due, but the economic necessity is merely the mechanism of the punishment. It's not the core of the suffering. Let's look at the nature of the reset itself in the source text.
Okay.
Sociologists pointing to this myth note that when Sisyphus watches that boulder roll back down to the valley, there's a period of time where he has to walk back down the mountain to retrieve it.
Right, he has to descend.
Yeah, and philosophers like Albert Camus argued that this walk down is actually the most agonizing part of the entire myth. Why? Because he isn't exerting physical effort during the descent. He is simply left alone with his consciousness, fully aware of his tragic condition.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. In our modern context, the working class experiences this agonizing walk down the mountain every single weekend.
You were talking about the Sunday scaries.
Exactly. We trivialize it by calling it the Sunday scaries, but it is truly that terrifying psychological awareness that the loop is starting over. Friday at 5:00 p.m., the boulder rolls down. Saturday and Sunday aren't actually free time.
They're just the descent.
They are the walk down the mountain. They're the recovery period mandated by biology, just so we have the physical capacity to push the rock again on Monday. The agony is sitting on your couch on a Sunday evening, fully conscious that tomorrow the meaningless loop begins anew.
Right. But look at the math behind that dread. The Sunday evening dread is certainly real, I won't deny that. But I argue it's a symptom of a systemic design, not the core issue itself.
A symptom?
Yes. Let's examine how the source material describes this cycle. It says the system is intentionally designed not to be one. That word intentionally is critical. The Monday morning alarm and the depletion of the paycheck are deliberate.
Deliberate by whom, though?
By the hyper-capitalist framework. Endless corporate growth demands endless labor extraction. Therefore, the boulder rolling down isn't some tragic twist of fate. It is a highly calculated economic function. Think about the shift from ownership to subscription models.
Oh, right. You will own nothing and be happy.
Exactly. You don't own your software, you rent it. You don't own your media, you stream it. In many major cities, you can't afford to own a home, so you lease it. The system is mechanically structuring society so that you are constantly bleeding capital just to exist.
To keep you working.
Yes. If the boulder ever actually stayed at the top, if a worker achieved true financial independence and owned their life outright, the system would lose its labor force. It literally needs you at the bottom of the hill.
I mean, I'm not denying the extraction model exists, but if it were purely a structural extraction of labor, we would approach our jobs the way a workhorse approaches a plow. We would just do it, numbly, out of pure survival instinct.
Some people do.
Some, sure, but culturally we don't do that. We obsess over our careers. We tie our identities to our job titles. We attend seminars on, boulder pushing efficiency.
That's fair.
Sisyphus was cursed by the gods, but our modern societal architects have managed something far more insidious. They have tricked us into internalizing the punishment. We actually believe that the boulder is our friend.
A friend? That's a stretch.
But we do. The psychological torture is that when the boulder rolls back down, like when you get laid off or when your salary doesn't cover inflation, you don't blame the system. Hustle culture ensures that you blame yourself. You think, I should have upskilled. I should have networked better. We are complicit in our own eternal punishment.
Wait, let me jump in there because I think there's a huge flaw in comparing us directly to Sisyphus in that regard.
Go ahead.
Sisyphus knew his punishment was eternal from the start. He was under no illusions about his reality. We, on the other hand, are operating with a profound disadvantage. We are actively lied to.
In what way exactly?
In the way the summit is presented to us. We aren't just workhorses, true, but we are playing a rigged game. Instead of the old cliché of a hamster on a wheel, let's look at it like a rigged casino.
Okay, a casino. I'm listening.
You walk into the casino, which is the corporate world. The lights are flashing, the onboarding is exciting. You get a comped drink, which is, the Friday pizza party or the ping pong table in the break room.
Right, the superficial perks.
Right. You sit down to play, and occasionally the house lets you win a small hand. You get a minor promotion, you get a new title like assistant regional manager. This isn't a psychological failing on the worker's part. It's a structural deception deployed by the casino to keep you at the table.
They have to give you a reason to stay.
Yes, they have to give you the illusion of progress or you just walk out. But the odds are mathematically locked. By the time you retire, you've essentially just broken even on survival, and the house has kept all the actual capital you generated over 40 years. Doesn't the element of false hope make our 9-to-5 loop structurally different from his mythological curse?
It is a fascinating analogy, the casino. But have you considered that this false hope, this illusion of the winning hand, actually proves my point?
How so?
It makes the modern iteration far more chilling than the Greek original. Sisyphus had tragic clarity. He possessed a certain dignity in his defiance because he knew exactly what the gods were doing to him. He looked at the mountain, knew it was a curse, and pushed the rock anyway. We are denied even that basic dignity.
Because of the casino's flashing lights.
Exactly. The illusion of the summit, the lie of the corporate ladder, it robs us of our defiance. By weaponizing hope, the modern system ensures we never revolt against the gods. We just keep thinking we use the wrong betting strategy at the table.
Wow. Yeah. That's dark.
Hustle culture is the psychological mechanism that forces us to participate enthusiastically in our own exploitation. And when the realization of that pointlessness finally hits, when you're 55, burnt out, and realize the corner office was a mirage, that is a psychological collapse far more devastating than simply looking at an empty bank account. The betrayal of your own mind is the true torture.
Okay, if we combine the psychological trap you're talking about with the economic reality I'm looking at, we are actually landing on the same terrifying conclusion.
Which is?
The topography of the entire mountain is a lie. We aren't actually climbing a mountain to reach a summit. The game is entirely rigged.
Yes, and the source material doesn't shy away from this at all. It states plainly that the terrifying truth of hypercapitalism is that the boulder must roll back down for the system to survive. It's not a malfunction of the economy when you end up broke at the end of the month, despite working full-time. It is the system functioning flawlessly.
Exactly. That's the structural argument. It exists solely to keep the working class endlessly pushing the boulder of productivity. We are just generating energy for a machine that we do not own. Every time we push the rock up, we are generating corporate value, shareholder equity, and executive bonuses.
Feeding the elite.
Yes. And the moment that value is extracted at the top, the rock is kicked back down to us.
I agree, it's a machine we don't own. But you know, the true tragedy isn't just the existence of the machine itself. It's that we buy books on how to be better batteries for it.
Oh, that's a great point.
We aren't building anything. Sisyphus wasn't building a monument. He was just moving a rock. In the modern corporate grind, despite the grandiose titles we are given, despite the quarterly goals and the performance reviews, we are not building a meaningful human existence. We are just moving rocks to generate value for someone else, watching it roll down and doing it again just to survive. The work itself is completely severed from human meaning.
It is the ultimate alienation from our own labor.
Precisely. We are not working to live. We are simply working to maintain the capacity to work tomorrow. That realization of ultimate pointlessness, that we are spending the finite hours of our one mortal life just maintaining our own exploitation, that is the darkest part of this entire analysis.
And the genius of using this specific mythological framework is how it strips away the contemporary jargon. When you remove words like synergy, career trajectory, compensation package, and deliverables, and you replace them with a man, a mountain, and a heavy rock, the absurdity of the arrangement becomes impossible to ignore.
It really does.
But even as we agree on the bleakness of the machine, my position remains that the architecture of this trap is fundamentally material. The system is a structured, inescapable physical trap deliberately designed to reset the working class. The depletion of resources, the inflation of assets, the rising cost of basic survival, that is the whip that keeps Sisyphus moving.
And I maintain that while the physical mountain certainly exists, and the economic math is as brutal as you say, the true horror lies in the mind of the one pushing the rock.
The psychological torture of hustle culture, the toxic positivity that demands we smile and practice gratitude while we are crushed by the weight of the boulder, and the eventual, terrifying realization of the ultimate pointlessness of our labor, that is the true curse.
So it's an existential tragedy versus an economic one.
Exactly. Sisyphus's tragedy was an existential one, and ours is too.
Yet despite our different angles on the mechanism of this torture, whether it's the math of the slope or the mind of the pusher, it is clear we've reached a profound point of agreement on the nature of the trap. We both acknowledge the bleak reality uncovered by applying this myth to modern labor. The corporate ladder is a structural lie.
A complete mirage.
Yes. The promise of eventual peace and rest is an illusion engineered to extract maximum output. The 9-to-5 loop is a rigged game designed for extraction, not for triumph.
It is a dark lens, but an incredibly clarifying one. It is fascinating how looking at our daily survival through the framework of ancient Greek mythology so effectively strips away the superficial promises of modern work. It forces us to confront the terrifying truth of our endless labor. It demands that we look at the reality of the loop itself rather than the hollow promises waiting at a summit that doesn't actually exist.
There is certainly much more to explore in how sociology intersects with ancient myth and how we might even begin to imagine a way to walk away from the mountain entirely, if that's even possible in a world where the mountain owns the farmland. The source material leaves us with a heavy burden to process regarding the very nature of how we spend our waking lives.
It does, and as we leave this discussion, I want to leave you with this. Tomorrow morning when your alarm goes off and you get out of bed, ask yourself, are you building a life or are you just pushing the boulder?